Hello? Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Cool. Everything is running smooth. Hi. My name is Skeleton Man Thing on the internet, also known as Roofy Boy. Oh shit, that sounds really bad. Nah, yeah, forget I said that. Rufus. Rufus, man, skeleton, thingy dude in the mind of some artist dude who also does like music and things like that. What a loser. Artists are losers, you know, because they're kind of like drawing using pens, ink to make really cool creative drawings. What a loser. So today we're gonna draw my comic. So yeah, we're gonna draw Le Comic. We're going to draw another page. So, just to give a little bit of a idea of what's going on in this part of the comic, communicism. Let's see. See what all I got here. Some of my pages are unprofessionally, but professionally out of order. Let's see. You get to see my hand in the side of the stream because, who cares if you see the skeleton man thing's puppeteering? Because, it's all an illusion. Everything you're seeing here is what I'm letting you see. Because it's all an illusion. We're all in the Matrix. If the Matrix is a mind. And what you're seeing is skeleton man vision. You ain't seeing skeleton boy fingers in this one. You're just seeing fleshy meat fingers. Alright, I think I found the page here. So to kind of give a little bit of a heads up on what's going on here, we have our two characters, our one of two or three main characters, two of the three main characters. We got them separated. They're just, sad and stuff. They're getting along with their lives. And there's a little bit of time between that page and then this page, but basically we got them as senior citizens of Stoker High School, and they are 2-1 bam. They are seniors no more. They are gonna graduate. So we got them getting their job applications, their internships, they're graduating, and then bam. Caps going up in the air, cap that. They see each other. And then this next page is gonna be the two of them having a nice little bonding moment, you know, rekindling of the friendship a little bit. We had that on another page here. See, yeah, here we go. Could be later in the chapter. But basically, we're going to be drawing that moment. And basically just doing that on a big spread here. So yeah. Riveting stuff, I know. Riveting stuff. Like a comic book or something. Like a story. Hear that? That's my chairs, ladies and gentlemen. It's squeaking all over the place. But that's okay. Alright. So basically, like I said, we're going to be doing that panel from a later part. But we're kind of covering it in real time. Because basically, this part is going to be basically kind of going over the different moments in the book. And basically, we drew this section, I think, the other week that I did this. Basically, it's I got that panel. Oh, dude, we got it. I'm the peak of professionalism here, boys and gals. Ah, here we go. It was on the other side of this page that I was showing y'all. We're going to peak unprofessionalism here, but that's okay. Hey, I'm the skeleton man thingy that's gonna give you the unpro tips, because you know we do our things our own way here, as should you guys. Right? There's a way to do things, yes, but the fun thing about art is breaking rules. You got rules, but of course, and no one wants you to break those rules, but you can successfully and skillfully break them, and you know, congrats. So do your own thing. Do your things your own way. Learn the basics, and then find a way to skillfully break them. In this case, unprofessionals. We all a bunch of unprofessionals around here. But that's okay. We're doing it our own way. Doing things our own way. Some may not see your way as professional, and others might. But that's okay. We're doing things our own way, and whatever art ways you want to do them. Tangent aside, yeah. So basically, this is going through the different events in this part of the comic. Of course, these sections here, the Dynamo Quiz Finals, we got that here. And now we're filling in this section. So I think what I want to do is, I know I want what I want for the big panel, because the big panel is more or less gonna be that one here. So, well, I might as well just go ahead and start drawing that one here. So, of course, we got our main comp page here. Let's see. Just doing a basic kind of, I guess it's technically not a thumbnail sketch. it's technically not a thumbnail sketch per se, but I kind of just do my thumbnails and my kind of, pencil parts. That's because that's just kind of how I feel about as far as doing those kinds of things. Like I got some thumbnail sketches and stuff. I mean I'll do that from time to time. Like, and I'm trying to see if I can build me a little website so I can kind of put that stuff on there, because in a sense I kind of like just, showing the things that I feel like I would want to see when doing art and drawing and things like that. Um, One of my favorite aspects of the Scott Pilgrim books, as of right now, is that they have the colored versions, and and the colored versions have a lot of behind the scenes background material. That my books aren't in here right now, but if you're familiar with those books, then you're going to be familiar with the fact that they have those behind the scenes pages and stuff like that. Like, it's got like thumbnail sketches and things like that. I think in volume 5. Um, but then I think there's like other little things that it comes with as well. I kind of would love to do that kind of thing, but in website form, and have it to where everyone that sees the things that I do and everything like that, I want them to be able to kind of see my process. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm tooting my own horn a little bit on that, thinking that my stuff is something that anyone would really just want to see specifically. And I don't know. I mean, people like my stuff, and maybe I'm being a little, and heck, maybe I'm even being a little harsh on myself here. But like, I don't know. It's a maybe as far as whether or not I'm being tough on myself here, or even just or tooting my own horn. I don't know. Well, maybe, dude. So it could be either or in my mind. Or in this guy's mind. I don't know. Okay, we got our rough panel there. One of the things that I like doing, and I kind of talk about something like this in my newest video, actually. I did a Attack on Titan style study kind of thing. Now, this is not like a full page spread or anything like that, but there's a similar idea that I got with my stuff that I do, is that basically the bigger it is, the bigger the moment, or the more important the moment is. For me, I like doing the sort of um like it's like, so for this, for instance, this is gonna be a big moment. This is like the reconciling of the two characters in this moment. So basically, that's gonna be in a bigger frame, um, than like if it was just everything going on here. And the reason why these even though these are big moments in the story, right, they appear in other points, and they are much bigger and more focused on. So of course they're kind of in these kinds of panels and pages and stuff like that. This is sort of just supposed to be like a recap, yeah, and it requires you to have read an earlier part of the book to get that. But I'm doing it like this, that way I have that moment down, and you can associate these moments with those more fleshed out moments and stuff. So you can it kind of makes the reading a little more what's the word, like, basically you flesh it out at a later not later you flesh it out at an earlier point in the story, and then when you glance over it again in you have the context of that moment in your brain whenever you're looking through this. So it's like you see this and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember this. Oh yeah, I remember that. And thus you're seeing, like in this page, you're seeing her. She's sad about something else that happens, and she's kind of reminiscing on the moments leading up to the point at which she loses Skeleton Guy for a little while, but then, and she's sad about that, but then when she gets to here where she remembers that moment where they rekindled and they're besties again, that makes her smile. So this moment will only work, honestly. Well, I mean, you could probably. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone could read this and not have this other page and be able to get what's going on here. But I feel like you're gonna get a lot better. Like this moment's gonna play better when you've had these fleshed out versions of these moments over here, and thus we're getting the fleshed out moment of them taking a picture together after graduating. So let's see. There we go. Let's see. I kind of drew myself in a box, pun intended, and a little bit here because you're seeing this from the other side of the other side of the fence. You got your little goal up here. It's a football field, and they're having their graduation on a football field. So I basically have to have this moment be outside. So I might put a little note here actually outside the field in front of fence. I said I put fence in front of French. French. Don't worry. If I put artist intent in front of this, if I misspell something or I do something wrong, I can just use the classic film school or excuse of it's all it's all the artist intent here. So yeah, I gotta be able to get this because they're inside the fence. Um, they're inside here because even though it might be a little hard to see here, they're inside of they're inside the fence and everything. So maybe I might make this panel this might be them maybe looking at each other. Like the idea that I have is that I want the two characters to end up in that in this panel, but I gotta figure out I'm gonna say about 4 panels, so 3 up here, 1 down here. I'm gonna try and figure out how to get to that spot in 3 panels. So I might see about so they look at each other. I'm gonna say I'm gonna do maybe in this panel I might have them up close here. They're gonna see I'm gonna say Melvin's mother. I think I'm gonna have them maybe surround them by some people here, but have it be apparent that so like I'm gonna put Melvin's the skeleton character down here, but I'm gonna try and have Melvin's mother over here. So basically, center of the frame, you'll be able to see her. And I might even maybe make the other characters around here. I might make them a bit more silhouetted. That way, it's apparent that they're all the same. But they're not important in this moment. Oh, and I gotta have chairs because they're sitting on a football field. In chairs and stuff like that. That's kind of how. I don't know if that's how. I forget if that's how. I want to say my high school graduation, a millennia ago. No, I want to say my high school graduation was inside. So it was actually in a basketball field where my college graduation was outside like this. So I don't know. Maybe I should have had this be a inside a stadium, maybe. But at the same time, I think you could probably get away with having a high school graduation being held outside on a football field. Cause I feel like you could probably still do that. I'm sure there's high school graduations and stuff like that have been done like that. I might have. Let's see. I gotta make it apparent that she's holding a camera. Although maybe I should. It's a phone. I'm trying to. See, I got my phone here. I got this nice little case thingy here. Let's see. So if I was holding a camera, I would probably be taking a picture the right hand. Oop. I'll be taking a picture with my right hand here. So if my right hand is right here, flip it around on her end. So yeah, okay. So she would be holding the camera with this hand, and then would be pointing with this one because this would technically be her left hand if flipped around. Yeah. So I'll have her. Actually, maybe she won't be pointing at the thing. Maybe she'll be waving them over. Because that's a mama thing to do. Wave wave the kiddos over for a picture. Let's see. Give her. Chesticles. I know that's probably a little TMI, but I mean, you're gonna be drawing that anyway on a female character, so I mean, not really not much of a thing to fuss about for anyone that doesn't like, nickname and stuff. That, a little bit of a crude way. I don't know. I got a South Parky kind of sense of humor, so although I definitely kind of pull it back a little bit, cause I don't always. I pull back my humor sometimes a little bit, just cause I know not everyone likes somewhat raunchy humor, so So sometimes I'll kind of pull it back a little bit, but I mean, I'm still gonna do my goofs and gags and stuff here. This is my stream. This is my stream. Let's see, we got the dad character in the background, but I'm keeping them sort of back in the back as far as because with everything that goes on in the story, the dad character's not exactly well liked by either of the two characters here, but I'm trying to do a little bit of a thing with the story by making all the characters, even the worst of the characters, like his character, I don't want to just make them a terrible human being. They might do bad things in the service of what they think is a good thing, but I don't want to just fully just make like there's some characters in this that you're gonna clearly see as being bad, and this story definitely goes. I definitely plan on going into some difficult directions with the story, whether it be characters. That's a bad pen. I will hold that back so I know that this one is not usable, and I will use that cap later to kind of put that between my guitar strings and stuff like that so I can kind of isolate the strings to do some wicked crazy stuff. But I like doing I like experimenting with my guitar and stuff like that and getting some wibbly wobbly BS with my stuff. But yeah, back to what I was saying. And this story revolves around characters either finding their own destiny or finding their own self-worth despite their circumstances in life. And in this part of the story, which is definitely a lighter affair than the other character story, because it's called Melvin and Lilith. And Melvin's side of the story is definitely more of a it's still got some tragedy in the story, but it's definitely a lot more lighter in comparison to the Lilith end of things, who he's a succubus and he's eventually becomes a high school dropout um, to pursue a lifestyle that is sort of built that element of it is built up to throughout her side of things, and it's meant to be tragic. You're meant to see a character sort of only find their self-worth through their lifestyle that only really a succubus can have. But of course, she eventually has to find her worth outside of that, and she finds it eventually other through another character that actually treats her right. Classic feminist, old school feminist story. See, I probably could have done those bars a little bit better, but I think I can figure out a way to work with that. Selling yourself bad. That's that's kind of more or less the gist of her side of the story. And sometimes men can be shitty people. But it's pretty fair as far as how it portrays those kinds of things. And fairly definite, like, I feel like I have a tightrope act to do with this kind of story because it's like, I mean, how do you tell a coming of age story with themes that are definitely, they could easily in any other media go in the direction of gratuitous and it'd be just weird. But it's like with this story, I tried to have a sort of, I want to tell a story that has tough subject matter, but at the same time is not like, it's very much gonna be a PG-13, or at least the very least a harsh PG-13 in kind of story. And this element of it is supposed to definitely be sort of levity, I guess. Could I feel like subject matter, or like a girl basically dropping out and of high school and becoming basically a prostitute. I think that's not exactly a easy story to tell, without either one going into the gratuitous and then just being a complete freaking weirdo about that. Uh, but at the same time, it's not exactly a happy story. But you got to be able to kind of bring levity to that kind of subject matter in a lot of ways. So it's like how do you bring levity to that? It's like you got to have another storyline that is definitely more more of your standard romance story. Granted, it doesn't end for these two characters in a way that's necessarily um it's a happy ending, but it's a bittersweet happy ending. But this is meant to be the B story that basically a brings levity to the other half of the story and is definitely a lot more like I said, more of like your standard coming of age love story, but it leads its way into the other end of the story where you got your succubus character and your skeleton character eventually meeting, and then, and yeah, this is probably gonna be spoilerific as heck, but I mean, I feel like I have to kind of explain it a little bit. It, I don't know. That's just me though. I like talking about my story. I, it's something I'm proud of. I feel like I'm proud of right now, and it's one of those things where it's a lot of story, a lot of visual storytelling that I think I feel like I'm pulling off pretty okay. But the thing with doing a comic that is dealing with subject matter is definitely, like I said, it's like you want to have levity, so you want to have your B story, you want to have your story that actually, it gives you a break from the rougher storyline, but the storylines, of course, will converge and have a nice, cohesive, happy ending, and have characters. There's like the succubus character sort of finding someone that doesn't treat her like garbage. And That's kind of the direction that I'm more or less wanting to go with the story. It's like Blue Valentine meets um, meets like a Tim Burton kind of story with characters that are hopefully well-rounded three-dimensional characters. I feel like I've like for a book that I've already probably got over a couple hundred pages in the bag at this point. I mean, this has been a long project that I've worked on, and I would hope that with my absolute obsession with trying to make, I guess, every character feel fleshed out and make every storyline like building on it to an extent that to such an building on things to such an extent that I feel like everything flows nicely and every character feels like you can clearly tell from point A to point B where the story is supposed to be going and everything like that, and you can give, I guess, you can be like, oh yeah, that character did this because this character because of this and that. But at the same time, with it being a mostly visual storytelling and it mostly visual story, with this thing being a mostly visual story, it's like, and not much in the way of dialogue, it's like you're gonna have some open to interpretation moments and stuff like that. That I I would hope that I can like deliver the story in such a way that's clear and everything, as well as but at the same time also give some openings and stuff like that to be able to be like, yeah, it's like, does this character is this character a slimy dirtbag because he's, you know, it's like, is he a is this character back here a slimy dirtbag, or is he doing what he can in the story to benefit the main character while also be, like, is he a good character, is he gonna be a good character, or is he gonna be a bad character based on XYZ actions and stuff like that. That's kind of where I want to go. Let's see. This is one of the ways that I want to. This is one of those ways that I'm doing my visual storytelling, and I don't see a lot of people doing this sort of thing, but at the same time, I feel like it's something that, I mean, then again, this might just be something that I'm just doing, and maybe I might be doing something different here. But yeah, one of the ways that I want to convey the storytelling throughout the dialogue is to almost like be able to. It's almost like putting the pictures, forming what would be dialogue into pictures, and then putting it in like a thought bubble or like a. I guess instead of having a dialogue bubble, you have a thought bubble with what they're thinking in their head, and you're seeing it visually and all that stuff. And that's kind of one thing I'm doing here. So like, she's going to kind of wave her hand over, and she has her phone, of course, turned in landscape mode. Not, is it landscape? Yeah, landscape. Turning it into landscape mode, and that would be clear that, okay, phone in landscape mode. That is a that's showing that she's going to take a picture. And if it's and to make it even more clear, you got a little camera thing up here with a little snap. Um, although it's a little, the snap is not quite as clear as it could be. I mean, that may be something I might need to actually go in and edit once I get into the computer and all that stuff and scanned and all that. There's definitely things that I will need to fix and edit. But that's just with anything. And there's little things that I could do that will need to be done just um because all comics kind of have their little editing phase where you're having to kind of fix mistakes and stuff like that and clean things up. I won't clean everything up because honestly, I like the idea of drawing and kind of working with mistakes or like even and granted that might also be a little bit of a correction in a sense. Um, so I don't know. Maybe my point is a little bit moot, but for the most part, I want to keep things that are a little bit imperfect as to be able to sort of what's the how do I describe that? It's like I want to keep things that are like little human touches and even kind of have that be something that speaks to what I'm doing with the story too. Like in a sense using the imperfections of the story a to sort of mirror the characters in a sense. So you have, let's say, you have a lawyer dad that's trying to get his son into the business and everything like that. That's the I say it's a B story. It's a B story, but I mean the main two characters, Melvin and Lil, are the two main characters, so they would technically, in some sense, be. It would technically still sort of be an A story, but at the same time, it's like not the. I guess how would you describe that? Cause I know a B plot and stuff is like the secondary story, but it's like not as important to the story in a but at the same time, this is an important part of the story. It's like this is the character that you're wanting to see end up with one of the other characters. So it's like it's just as important, and it's like you got the hard hitting drama of the Lilith story, but at the same time you got the like, but you also got the heart that not quite as hard hitting because it's a little less dark of a storyline, but it's still like trying to think. I'd argue like I'm trying to think of what that would be if that would be an A if that'd be an A if it would still be considered an A story even though it's the secondary story because I want the characters' stories to be fairly equal in their importance. And it's like not one like I mean the story's called Melvin and Lilith, so it's supposed to be they're both equally important because they're both equally take equal space in the story. I would hope. Well, I feel like I feel like I take up they take up equal space. One was a little bit easier than the other to write for because it had more interesting drama and stuff like that going on. And it's interesting because like the Melvin story was a little tough to write because I felt like okay, hey, seeing the downward spiral of a character, I mean that's gonna be interesting in itself. I mean you got so many movies that are about that, and sort of seeing the injustice of the world upon a good character being put into scenarios that are not where they need to be. In the case of Lilith's character, event a sort of dropping out of school due to actions that lead up to that point to where she is more or less kind of suspended and expelled to a certain extent. And but then but that story is, I think, even though it's like because like that one was the more interesting story to write because there was because I mean drama is going to always be interesting. It's like if there's conflict is always interesting, so it's gonna always going to be the most interesting stuff. But for like for his character, for a little bit, I had a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what conflict to have with that. And eventually I kind of came to okay, character, the 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 I'll just call it important A plot, important B plot. Uh, Basically the important A plot being everything with the succubus girl, and then and when I say girl, I mean young adult. No, 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 they're 18 in the story. Just to kind of get that sort of sort of that sort of groundwork sort of away. Hey, hey. But yeah, you have two characters. There's one's downward spiral is conflict. There's drama. That's interesting. How do you make? But it's like, but then you have the other character who is more of the goody two shoes character. How do you make their character interesting? And I had a little bit of trouble with that. Cause it's kind of like a Superman dilemma. It's like you have a character who's the Boy Scout and all that stuff. How do you make the Boy Scout interesting? And for Superman, that is very like there is ways to do that, but it still ends up being a little bit of a dilemma there as far as trying to figure that kind of story out. And for Melvin's character, it's how do you make this character who has a fairly cushy life, how do you make them interesting and have drama? And how do you eventually, get them meeting the succubus girl and eventually having a relationship? Well, it's like my kind of way of going to that was why don't you make him sort of not know where he wants to go with his life at that point in his point at this point in time in the story. It's like how do you it's like give him a crisis of identity that he eventually finds that causes conflict between him and his father. It's like you get to that point and it's like okay, there you go. It's like you have your conflict for that character here, and then everything just sort of goes from there as far as the story and everything like that. And of course, it eventually causes problems between these two characters, and of course, then you also got the other character, Sarah, who's going to be more of a character um there's a sort of flipping of the trope a little bit. You think, okay, you're having a love story here. Here, something happens, and then they're gonna get back together, right? Right? Well, it's like I'm just like, well, it's like, what if they don't get back together? It's like, what does it, and where does that leave the Sarah character, the ghost girl? It's like, where does that lead her as a story? And then you got an interesting story about, okay, it's like you're sort of left on your butt by your boyfriend character there. And then it becomes a story about finding, in a sense, finding her own self and person without the main character, and how does she chooses to become her to kind of become her own person, and be happy on her own. And I think that's a really good message to me. I think it's like, and I don't think it is a hopeless message there. And that's where I want every character to be. I want every character to start out in some kind of conflict and dilemma, and for the most part try to take it in as objective a place as possible. Or with I mean, as with any story, you're gonna have your own beliefs and stuff like that come through in the story. Clearly, to me, you know, prostitution bad. It's dehumanizing. It's putting and that's something that to me personally is important to tell to the story. But then I also feel like then it's like, okay, it's like ha it's like find you gotta be able to find your own self. Um, you gotta be able to find your own sense of self outside of a relationship and stuff like that. It's like that's a good thing to kind of go away with too. Then you also got, I guess, as far as for the Melvin character, it's like finding your own sense of self without, let's say, your girlfriend or your father and stuff like that. Like you are not just an extension of like you're not just an extension of you know your girlfriend, your wife. You're not just an extension of your parents and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I want to go with his character. As well as just like and how do you work and find yourself through um and it's like, and how do you find your worth, well, and as well as also being true to what you want for yourself. It's like, and it's like, which might be a bit of a big story to kind of tackle as your technically your first story, even though technically this is technically not my first story, because I used to have a comic. I think it was I called it Get the Tape. So basically, it was on Smack Jeeves, if I remember correctly. If I remember correctly, a I had I had an idea for a comic and I wanted to put it out there, but it wasn't necessarily formatted in such a way that was conducive to something like tapas or what's another one? I guess I think it's what's that webcomic? One of the big ones. Webtoons. I it wasn't anything that was just necessarily made for something like that or that kind of format. So I put it there and on Smack Jeeves because it allowed you to do full page. Um, and I don't, and I forget if Smack Jeeves is around anymore. I want to say that it might still be around. Not 100% sure actually. Um, but yeah, but it's like that whole comic was like, girl trying to find a tape that has her father, a recording from her father on it, and it's stolen. So